Okay, let's go. Sorry that I'm not with you here today. I hope you're still having a good day. Um, let's do our best here with math. Okay, so at my top here, I'm going to do sixth review. And then what we're going to do today is work with fractions. Now, as always, like as you watch this, you can pause it, you can rewind it, you can watch it again. That doesn't sound so great, but it's there for you. So let's do this thing. So how do I add and subtract fractions? Oh no, fractions, not fractions, with unlike denominators. With unlike denominators. All right, let me hit the focus button here, see if that helps a little. That's kind of good. All right, just so we remember here, fractions, they're just parts of a whole. That's all. Don't overthink what fractions are. They're numbers, they're just numbers. They're a little more complicated than the regular numbers that we see, but there's nothing wrong with that. So even something like 1/3, if I have 1/3, I can draw like a little circle here, make the little peace symbol, and then a third of that. This is really not to scale, so I really apologize for that. Here I got out a highlighter. There's a third of that. It says 1 piece of 3. The whole thing is 1, and then 1 piece of that is there. Or I can do 3/8. And for this one, I'm going to draw a little rectangle here. And if I'm dividing it into 8 pieces, I need 7 lines. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's close to 7 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's pretty good for just kind of throwing that out there. So then 3/8 of that would be like this much. So those are fractions, like not a big deal. When we look at this, if I was up here looking at this one here and I said, you know, I wanted to add 1/3 and 1/8, I could draw this, but the problem is you can see these pieces and this piece, they're different sizes. So when we do this, what we always want to do is we want to make the pieces the same size. Right? So if we have pieces the same size, oh, I forgot, I'm here with creepy cat. If we make the pieces the same size, we can add them together. We might have to adjust the size at the end, but that's okay. And we know that as eighth graders, we know that that is when we find the common denominator. And that says, like, when we look at these two things here, if we're cutting it in the same size, then we can add them together. Like in this is like we've divided something into thirds, so that's a bigger piece. This we've divided into eighths, that's a smaller piece. So if we get them in the same piece size, we can figure out how many of them we are. So let's just do these two. Let's add those two together. So I've got 1/3 plus 1/8. Now, when I look at this, like this, we did a lot of this in sixth grade. And that's like, what's the lowest common denominator? Let's make a factor tree. Let's, all this stuff, whatever. Okay, so don't do that. What I want you to do is like check your chart. Like, here's your chart. If I just look at my chart and I'm checking 3 and I'm checking 8, and I'm looking at 8, 16, 24. All right, do I have an 8 and a 16 here? I don't. So they're just going to meet at 24. So I'm going to turn them both into 24. And to do that, when I go back to this, what I'm going to do is I'm just, for my sake, you don't have to do this, but I'm going to write a little 24 here to remind myself I'm going to turn these into 24ths. And I know that I'm going to multiply this by 8. And I'm going to multiply this by 3. So I'm going to just rewrite this. So this is going to become 8. So 8 times 1, 8 times 3 is 24. 3 times 1, I'll use my parentheses here, and 3 times 8 is 24. Right? So now we're just adding those two. Why did I put parentheses? Because I forgot I was adding, and I was going to multiply them. So you don't need the parentheses here. And then we're just adding, right? So I've got 11 pieces. Now they're just 11 pieces of 24. So if I had something divided into 24 pieces, I would have 11 of those. So, and that's my answer right there. It is simplified because there's no common factor for 11 and 24. Now, for some people, that when they look back at this part here, they might say, well, why are you doing that? That doesn't make any sense. You're changing the number. You've made a new number. Well, technically, I haven't made a new number because what I'm doing is I'm multiplying 1/3 times 8 over 8. And if we know 8 over 8 is equal to 1, I've just multiplied 1/3 by 1, which would then be 8/24. And this goes to what tomorrow's lesson would be, how we multiply fractions. So let's try a couple of these. Like that's all we're doing. We just find a common denominator, add them together, check and see if we need to simplify. All right, so how about, I wrote some down here. How about 8/3 minus 3/2? Now, this is pretty easy. I mean, a 2 and a 3. Most of us, when we do this, we kind of just multiply these together anyways to say we're going to turn them into 6s. But I'm going to just write up here times 2 times 3. And that would be then 16/6 minus 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 2 is 6. 9/6 gives me 7/6. All right. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, 7/6. Let me change colors here so we can get, we'll see if this actually looks like a different color. This is fine. It's improper, yes. And simplified, right? If I go back to that idea of what simplification is, no common factor for 11 and 24. There's no common factor for 7 and 6. Now, you super smart people out there are like going, well, yes, there is, Mr. Ronovich. There's 1. All right, well, you go ahead and divide both those by 1 and see what you get. You could also write this as the mixed number, 1 and 1/6. Now, that's something you should be able to do. Both of these you should be comfortable with. But this is our 8th grade one here. This one here is one that we have a use for. We have a use for that improper fraction. Let's do another one here. How about 5/6 plus 9/8? All right, 6 and 8. That's a little different. Let me get my chart. When I look at my chart here, here's my 6 and here's my 8. Now they meet at 48, but if I go backward here, can I find one where they meet earlier? They meet at 24, and that's it. So they meet at 24. We could do 24 instead of 48. Either way, you're going to get the same answer. All right, so something weird happened here. My machine stopped recording, so I've switched over to this. So the problem we were doing was 5/6 plus 9/8. And what we looked at was the multiplication chart. And the multiplication chart said we could use 24. So I'm going to write a little 24 right here. You should just be at the bottom of your paper like we were. So I'm going to go times 4 here because that'll make my 6 24. Times 3 here because that'll make my 8 24. So then when I multiply these, I'm going to get 20 over 24 plus 27 over 24. When I add those together, I get 47 over 24. That common denominator just travels right along here because it's just the size of the pieces. This is perfectly fine. We have an improper simplified fraction. There's an L in there somewhere. Oh boy. An improper simplified fraction. But we can also write it, of course, like 1 over 23 24ths. What that is we had 1 whole 24 we could take out of 47. And then we had 23 of 24 remaining. So both of those are perfectly fine. So let's flip this over and let's try one on your own. Let's do 17 sevenths minus 5 thirds. And let me just give you like 30 seconds here to give it a go. And then we will talk about it. Where's my timer? Here's my timer. Here's Crazy Cat. To watch the clock for us. Here, I'll set them up like this. Oh boy. Sorry, Cat. All right, so let's try this now. I'm looking at this. I see I've got a 17, I got a 7 and a 3. Go back and check my list. Here's my 7. Here's my 3. And I look at they connect at 21, and I don't have something in between. So there's no 7 and 14 here, and there's no 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 there. So we're going to use 21. So I'm going to write a little 21 here. Multiply this by 3. Multiply this by 7. Now 17 times 3, I don't know, so I'm just going to do exactly what we did in the last lesson, some simple side math. 7 times 3 is 21, so 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 51. So that's 51 21st. I'm not even going to think about this 7 because I'm going to make it into 21 by my choice. 7 times 5 is 35. 7 times 3 is 21. Now I'm subtracting. Some other old skills, 51 minus 35, bigger bottom, better borrow. That's what somebody told me last year. So I'm going to ungroup this to make it 4 tens and bring 1 10 over here. So now I have 11 minus 5 is 6. 4 minus 3 is 1. 16 21sts. All right, now 16 21sts, I'm not entirely sure that's simplified. So when I get my multiplication chart, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over. When I flip it over, I'm just checking divisibility, right? And the numbers that I always check are 2, 3, and 5. Once you get outside of that, then you're looking at numbers that are prime, like your 11s, 13s, 17s, stuff like that. So first thing to check as always, is it even? If it's even, I'm just going to cut it in half, divide them both by 2. They're both not even, so they're both not divisible by 2. Are they divisible by 3? Well, this says the sum of the digits is divisible by 3. So if I put 1 and 6 together, I get 7. That's not divisible by 3. If I put 2 and 1 together, I get 3. That is divisible by 3. So only one of them is divisible by 3. No common factor there. And then 5s are easy. Are there 0s and 5s? In the 1's place, neither of those has a 0 or 5. So this is a simplified fraction. This is great to grow. Simplified. Yay, Cyclops smile. All right, now it's a great chance for you to do a problem with your teacher, or you could start the homework, either one. Good luck. You can ask me a question. You could ask Miss Leck a question. You could ask anybody in the math department if you have questions about this. All right, do your best. I will see you tomorrow.